Hello, thank you very much for inviting me to join you today on World Hearing Day. I want to thank Lauren Reyes for inviting me and all of you for joining, bringing your energy, your commitment to this important issue, and all that you do for ensuring the basic human rights of every human person. The Movement for Community-Led Development has a website. I hope you'll visit it. And we also have a monthly newsletter called Shift the Power. That's our hashtag, and everything we're about is about shifting the power from top down to bottom up, from centralized control to the power of local community people to set and achieve their own visions and goals. I want to express appreciation to your compatriot, Dr. Sai San-Gabriel, who is volunteering for this movement, heading up our humanitarian peace development nexus, because these three issues are intimately connected. And she is leading our group members in finding out how that all works together. Also, given that this is World Hearing Day, I want to acknowledge one of our first interns in the development of this project. Her name is Echowatti Liu, and Echowatti was totally deaf. And when I was interviewing her over text messages, I said, well, Echowatti, one of your responsibilities will be to go to World Bank meetings, and if there's some issue that we really care about there, you'll need to intervene. And she typed, "I'm no pushover." She would go to these meetings, and the university would send a sign language translator with her. When she intervened, she would sign at them passionately, and then the translator would, hopefully with the same amount of passion, translate it into the language that they could hear. I also, this movement really wouldn't exist if it weren't for the pioneering work of hundreds and thousands of great development experts over the last 100 years. One who was one of my mentors was Dr. Y.C. James Yen, who founded the International Institute for Rural Reconstruction there in the Philippines. I am old enough that I actually got to meet this gentleman and learn so much from him. And IIRR today continues to be one of the members of our movement. I also want to celebrate Chi Radaja. Chi was head of the Kalayu SIDS program, and the Philippine government in 2015, at the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals, actually hosted us to launch the Movement for Community-Led Development that same day at the United Nations. And she made all those arrangements. She also arranged to bring a community volunteer, Elsie Longoy. Elsie shared about the extraordinary work of community volunteers in dealing with Typhoon Haiyan, which, as you know, was devastating to the Philippines. So we launched this because we recognized that of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, at least 12 of them can only be solved through integrated strategies at the community level. You can't solve problems of health if you don't have clean water, if people aren't well nourished, if they don't have access to education, and they're mired in poverty. All of these things have to come together for any of them to be solved. And those integrated local solutions are going to be unique to every community. And so that's what we stand for. We have 5 goals. The first, and this is particularly important in this month, Women's History Month, with International Women's Day coming up, voice and agency for women, youth, and marginalized groups in local decision making. The second is adequate community finance. In so many countries, local communities have only a tiny share of public resources, maybe only 1 or 2%. All the rest stays in the capital city. What we're recommending and what experience has shown is that communities need to have at least 20% share of public resources if they're going to succeed in their own development. They need systems of good local governance. And by that, we mean transparency, public forums, opportunities for citizens directly to engage and participate with their local government. And when that happens, you get quality public services. You also get the chance to really develop sustainable, resilient communities, because resilience is fundamentally a community attribute. There's really no such thing as a resilient family or a resilient nation. A nation that is resilient when its communities are resilient. People are safe when their communities are resilient. Now, we have these wonderful national chapters, and they are marked in green. Most of them are in Africa. However, we're also in formulation with lots of countries in Europe, Asia, and Latin America who share this commitment to empowered, effective communities, and who share a frustration that the traditional funding mechanisms for development are also very top-down. We have 72 international organizations that are members of this movement, as well as more than 1,500 grassroots organizations at the community level who are members of those national chapters. Okay, this is a little more complicated. This is our theory of change. So if you are a member of a national chapter, a civil society group in your country, you're working in two different directions. You're working to advocate for policies in your country that lead to greater decentralization and devolution. And you're also working on facilitating communities, organizing communities to be able to solve their own problems and to be able to hold their local government to account. And if those things can come together, you could get nationwide programs of community-led development. And we're pretty sure that that's the only possible way to achieve the ambitious 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, there have been countries, like the Philippines, for example, who really have scaled up community-led development. The Kalai SIDS program and the national program that it turned into are one example. Another is in Indonesia. The work of community-led development, of mobilizing communities, often starts with civil society groups. They've been doing it for 100 years. But then building a consortium to be able to work together to get hold of a consortium who can get a hold of larger money from bilateral donors or private philanthropies and get the government interested, do a pilot with the government, and then hopefully that turns into a nationwide program. In the case of Indonesia, it became, at the intermediate level, an $80 million World Bank project. Today, it's a $7 billion a year line item in the national budget. This is pandemic time. So one of the roles of the movement in this past year, and it'll be for most of this year, has really been to learn how to adapt these very generally in-person community mobilization methodologies to be safe during the pandemic, and truly having the people committed and knowing that there is that there are things that they can do to protect themselves. As all the experts were pulled out of communities, the outside experts, community leaders really stepped forward to protect their neighbors. And it's that kind of self-help that has accelerated the shift in power to communities. So this work on working through the challenges of the pandemic, and particularly promoting vaccination, that is going to be a big job for all of us in communities. There's so much misinformation, so much stigma attached to this disease. So getting accurate information to every single person, ensuring that our governments get hold of the vaccines they need and deliver it to every single person, that's the only way we're going to win. And that's going to require real community ownership of that process. We've been doing Zoom calls every month on COVID, on other subjects, bringing together hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of community leaders and the organizations that support them. We've also been gathering a lot of evidence. We have a new mobile tool for community-led development assessment, and that tool is being rolled out, and we're hoping that lots of people find ways to measure the effectiveness of their community-led development programs. So the bottom line is you. This is an uphill battle, frankly. The powers of patriarchy, the powers of top-down control of development monies and development activities really is going to require all of us to bring our creativity and intelligence and hard work to this. So I hope that you all will go to mcld.org, learn about it, subscribe to our newsletter, explore forming a national chapter in the Philippines to promote these goals, and I look forward to working with you in the months ahead to make that a reality.